Hello, I wanted to go over the 41 talking points with you. First of all, please make sure that you read the beginning welcome message. It does explain why these 41 talking points are important. Let's go ahead and just start in the points themselves. First of all, number 1, agent knows the protected classes, including sexual orientation. The orientation uses this diagram to explain what the protected classes are, so you should be familiar with that. It is included in this packet. The agent is familiar with housing provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This link does not work. I downloaded the pages from the ADA website. You certainly can go there. The agent knows how to access appropriate assistance for those with languages or other communication barriers. Another tool you have is to go to the Tompkins County website. This site has some information about an ADA coordinator, so I'm sure that these folks would offer you assistance in being able to communicate if you needed that. Agent is aware that they cannot assist landlord or of owner-occupied property in choosing a tenant based on a protected class. I think that kind of says it for itself, but you should be aware that that is a fair housing violation. Agent is aware of the potential for steering in neighborhoods or school districts. Agent is aware that personal opinion of school districts cannot be shared with client or customer. So if somebody has a question about a neighborhood or a school, you should direct them to you can direct them to an appropriate website, you can direct them to Google, but you should not be providing any personal opinions about any school district or location, neighborhood. Agent is familiar with the Department of State guidelines regarding fair housing. This link is active and does work, so you can take a look at the website to show you where the housing, what the rules are for that. Okay. Agent is familiar with advertising guidelines relating to fair housing. I included in the packet a summary of fair housing laws, as well as some keywords that you should avoid or not use at all. Hopefully that's helpful. Agent knows how to obtain official appropriate advice or assistance should a fair housing issue arise. You can contact the NYSAR legal hotline, about this or anything else that you might need. So please take advantage of the fact that NYSAR, that's a service that they provide through your dues. Antitrust. Agent can define the 4 main areas of antitrust legislation: price fixing, tying agreements, territorial allocations, and boycotts. I'm going to share with you a video that I think will be very useful if you can take a few minutes to watch it. Agent understands that the fee offered to a subagent, buyer's agent, or broker's agent on multiple listing information sheet in no way indicates the total commission negotiated between the listing office and the seller. I think that's self-explanatory. Agent has reviewed the list of dangerous words and phrases that might be possible antitrust violations. There is a compliance guide on Innovia. I've also included it in this packet. It's right here. So please take a few minutes to review that. Agent understands that there is no usual or typical commission that the board does not fix, recommend, suggest, control, or maintain commission rates or division of commissions. So I get this question quite often. What's the typical commission? Very often, as a matter of fact, at the board office. My answer is it's always negotiable by each individual broker, and that nobody has the same commission, and that should be the answer always to anybody who asks that question. Agent knows, and it should be factual as well, agent knows what actions to take to disassociate him or herself from any situation that might be construed as a violation of antitrust laws. First of all, if there's any even beginning of a question of antitrust, you should definitely leave the room and not be involved. Make sure that you're out of the picture. Again, please take a look at the video that I'll be including in this, because it is a relevant and useful video to explain all of these rules. MLS rules and regulations. The agent has gone over the 6-page MLS input sheet and contract and has demonstrated how to fill each category along with which categories are required fields. Doing this by video is a little bit hard to go over those 6 pages. I have included each of the packets. I will include, additionally, I will include the exclusive right to sell contract for both commercial and residential in a supplement package as well. So take a look at those. If you have questions, please contact me. Agent knows how to access the county assessment rolls, utility charges, special districts, surcharges, etc. to verify seller information for the forms. So there's a lot of tools on Innovia on the home screen, which I think we've talked about before. So under the links of interest, there's a so you can, under the links of interest on the home page shows county clerk data, ImageMate, tax rates, and such. So you can pretty much find any link that you need to fill that document out. Agent is familiar with the timed events that are associated with the listing and communicates with the MLS 2 business days to enter the listing into the MLS, 2 business days to report the property in an under contract status, either taking backup offers, which leaves it in an active status, or UC, which takes it off the market completely and shows it under contract. Agent is familiar with the change forms. I've included a change form in this packet. It's whenever you make any kind of change that's substantive to the listing, you need to have that changed by or signed by the owner to make those changes. Extensions are to be entered by brokers or agents before the expiration date. If the listing expires, it's a brand new listing. It cannot be extended after it's expired. So you should make sure, even if it's under contract, if there's any chance that it's not going to close, which I suppose until it's closed, there's always a chance it won't close. You want to make sure that you've extended the listing contract, or it won't be able to come back on the market if something happens. Agent is aware of the status of active, pending, back on market, and status flags of BC, which is under contract taking backups, as I said, active recall, temporarily off the market, don't show, and that BC gets changed to UC when the contingencies have been made. And it should be done well in advance of the closing of the property. Now, under contract is under contract, so it tends to be that BC and UC is the same date, but it's a different status, so it changes the way it behaves on syndications and in the MLS, in the way it's viewed. Active recall tends to be used for things like the buyer has to sell his or her house before the closing can take place. So they put in a purchase offer, but there's a contingency that they have to sell their house, so they get first right of refusal. Agents aware that of the different kinds of showing instructions for a property, and that make appointment means talking with a person, not just leaving a message or voicemail on an answering machine. So make sure that if there's a make appointment, that you've actually communicated with somebody. It could be a tenant, could be that there's children at home, could be anything. You need to make sure that you've made an appointment prior to just going and showing the property. Agent is aware that the buyer, broker, or sub-agent is allowed to be present at an offer presentation unless the seller has stated in writing to the buyer, broker, or sub-agent that this is not the case. And just recently, another rule was made by the National Association of Realtors that if a buyer asks for proof that their offer, because so the offer has to continue to go even though the property is under contract, you need to continue to show offers to the seller, that if they ask for proof that that was done, that you have to provide that proof. So that is new. We are working on getting a form for that, but that was just adopted effective January 2019. Agent is aware that real property has to be for sale if listed in the MLS. A mobile home on a leased lot cannot be placed in the MLS as it does not convey real property. In New York State, real estate license is not normally required for those transactions. A business for sale may be listed in the MLS under the commercial category as long as real estate is also being offered for sale. So it always has to have real property associated with it. Agent is aware that realtor is not the correct spelling or pronunciation of realtor. Very important because it makes us sound like we don't know what industry we work for. Agent understands that the difference among school, municipal, and postal boundaries, that there is a difference between those. I'm sure you do. As a courtesy to the seller, the agent is aware that when showing a property, they should leave a business card as well as contact the listing agent with feedback from the showing, especially providing feedback for a vacant property can be helpful. This is a courtesy and a cultural, not a requirement. Agent is aware that they are to identify themselves immediately as buyer, broker, sub-agent when talking with or getting information from seller or listing agent. And this is any property type. You need to let them know who your agency relationship is with. Agent is aware that agency disclosure form must be signed upon the first substantive contact between the potential clients and customers. This also includes telephone contact. So I've included the agency form. I think it's a bit different if you're working with commercial, but there is an agency relationship in any case. I'm going to click on that. So here's the agency disclosure form. Agent is aware that as a buyer broker, their only contact with the seller and their property is to show it. Asking questions of the seller about where they're going, etc., is not permitted. Agent is aware of current realtor inspection schedule and the process of putting a listing on inspection. Inspections are for board members only. Prospective purchasers or prospective board members are not to be shown the property during inspection times. These are intended to be realtor inspections. You've probably gotten those by email. If you've been a member for any time, the inspections can also be found. Let's see if I can get this into the screen. Under open house, it will show agent open houses. So let me go back and just make that clearer. So what I want to see is an agent open house, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click that. There's 5 of those listed. So this is how you would know which ones, along with the email that you get every day. That's the agent open house. Okay. We're almost done. Agent is aware that all parties are to be given copies of everything they sign at the time of signing. Agent is aware that the MLS listing contract is the entire agreement with the parties and that there can be no side agreements or understandings. Somebody had a side agreement that one of the kitchen implements were going to stay, and there was nothing in writing. And then when they got to the closing table, it blew up the whole transaction because it was not put in writing. So side agreements are really bad and get people into trouble. That's just one example that I've heard. Agent is aware BC and blanket consent to negotiate means that the buyer, broker, or sub-agent has to locate the listing agent for presentation of offers. If the listing agent cannot be found, then the principal broker or office manager of the listing office should be contacted. Agent is aware that the listings can be submitted to adjacent boards with reciprocal agreement and special forms, and you can check with the board office to see who they are. Agent is aware that all exclusive listings are to be listed on MLS or registered as an office exclusive with the office within 2 business days. And an office exclusive is just that. If it's here and somebody asks about it, we tell them who to contact. We don't give any information about that listing to anybody except who the listing agent is. And going back to the reciprocal agreement, just to touch on a couple of them, we have an agreement with Elmira, Cortland, Binghamton, Rochester. Those are the ones that are off the top of Albany, off the top of my head. So if there's somebody, for the most part, anybody around us, you can list reciprocally. Agent is aware that a cooperative agreement or co-broke with another agency can only be a cooperative agreement co-broke of his or her own personal listing. Agent is aware that if a listing indicates there are deed restrictions, special assessments, or named exclusions, then the agent should call the listing agent for specific information. Agent is aware that only limited information from the MLS can be given to a potential buyer. Only customer display versions of the listing should be shared with clients and customers. If you're not sure what that is, please contact the board office or someone else in your office to be sure that you're giving the correct display. That's really important because it has personal information on the other displays. Agent is aware that the property disclosure form, utility surcharge form, agency disclosure form, lead form, and special district form, if applicable, need to be completed and signed at the time of the listing, as well as other disclosures required by the agent's office. Agent is familiar with www.ithacarealtors.com. This has information about upcoming classes and events. There is a blog. We put information, statistics, and such on that page. It is not a login for inspections anymore, so that has to be adjusted on the 41 talking points. Agent is familiar with the process of adding a lockbox to the inventory in Innovia, changing their email settings, assigning a lockbox to a listing, and removing a key box. It's no longer Supra. This needs to be adjusted, but if you are not familiar with how to use the key, how to use a lockbox, and you need to be, please contact the board office. This is a voluntary activity. You do not have to use the lockboxes that are provided through the board office, but you do have to have approval from the seller to have a lockbox on the listing. Agent is aware that they are responsible for information posted by the board on the Innovia login page. MLS board news and events in Innovia and postings on the blog, or in emails, I should say, are all the responsibility of the agent to be aware of the changes that are taking place. So once you've reviewed this and you have an opportunity to sign it, please do that. This is the listing, or the video that I wanted to make sure that you knew about.
All right,
I'm going to play just a little bit of it.
This has been a wonderful evening.
Please take a few minutes.
Great steaks and even better wine. But now I'd like to get down to a little business. And most of you I've known a long time. Scott, our kids played ball together. George, we played tennis together. I consider each of you family. Even you, Carol. Even though we're competitors, we've been through good and bad times together. Lately, it's been harder to make a profit than any of us have seen in years. I know I could stand to see more cash coming in the front door. So, next week, I'm raising my commission rate to 7%. Just wanted you to know. Obviously, what you decide to do is entirely up to you.
Believe it or not, that was based on a true story. In the 1970s, a group of real estate competitors were convicted of fixing prices on their commissions while they enjoyed dinner at a fancy country club, and the convictions were upheld on appeal. Antitrust laws haven't changed much since the 70s. In fact, they haven't changed much in over 100 years, but the ways that real estate professionals can get into antitrust trouble have changed. So, welcome to Antitrust 101 for real estate professionals.